Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very exciting episode of the Football Scoop podcast. Scott Russell, got Zach Barnett, John Bryce. I affectionately call them college football experts because they know way more than the average human. We got Group of Five madness, mayhem, the most exciting week currently of the season. This is going to tell the direction of the Group of Five playoff entrance, perhaps. Not necessarily. It might not solve anything, but it's going to give us a lot of clarity. We've got two huge games in Group of Five, several others, but Boise State, UNLV Friday night at UNLV. Notre Dame takes on Navy up in MetLife in New York, New Jersey. And that's going to tell us a lot about Navy, going to tell us a lot about Notre Dame. Army gets Navy in a couple of weeks. Army and Navy play later. Top of the American. This is a big, big deal, potentially historic. So, gents, I would like to start us with Boise State at UNLV. Huge game. Zach, you want to give us lay of the land and we can all weigh in on thoughts and opinions?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So this is a more de facto elimination game to get into the playoff. It's not an elimination game for the Mountain West Championship, which you have to win to get into the playoff. But you look at the competition from out east. Whoever wins this game has to win. The winner of this game is the only opportunity for the Mountain West to get into the playoff, I believe. And they're going to have to beat the other one most likely twice. So Boise right now is 17th in the AP poll, which means nothing, but it's the best data point we have so far. Their best performance, and it's a great performance, but it's a loss, was their 3-point loss at Oregon. Outside of that, they've beaten Georgia Southern, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii. After this, Boise has San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State. It's not a strong year in the Mountain West. Go ahead.
I call it timeout. This is a quick pause. Washington State is legit. And Boise State handled them. Georgia Southern, week one on the road down in Statesboro, Boise State handled them. Those are good football teams. So I don't want to discount those. Yeah, they gave Oregon everything Oregon won, and Oregon found a way at the end. But okay, sorry, my timeout is over.
No, you're absolutely correct. But you look at the depth of the AAC. You've got 5 really good teams at the top of that conference, and led by Army and Navy, who both of whom, the odd thing about their schedule is that they could meet in the AAC championship game, but they don't have to play each other in the regular season, which helps both of them reach the conference championship game, given that they don't have to play each other. But they both get opportunities against Notre Dame at neutral site locations. So that's going to be a resume booster that Boise State, UNLV don't have. They simply don't have the opportunity, especially with Boise having to lose to Oregon. So this is very much a must-win game for both of these teams if they want to play beyond their own conference championship game.
Valid. Okay. So flip it around. Give me the UNLV lay of the land.
UNLV, so they didn't even start playing football until college football's 100th season. They started playing in 1968. Not a ton of great history there, to be honest with you. They played a D2 semifinal. They played in some bowl games. They played in a conference championship game just this past year at home against Boise State. But outside of that, there's not a lot. They haven't given Las Vegas a reason to be excited. Las Vegas has a reason to be excited about UNLV football. And this is the biggest regular season game in UNLV history. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what a close second would be.
All right, so UNLV 6-1. They did have a little slip up. Syracuse came to town. Syracuse is very good. Syracuse only has 1 loss as well. Syracuse came in and just barely got them by a couple points. So each team has 1 loss. What they need to do, thinking about the playoff, is they've got to win this game and win out. That gets them into the Mountain West championship game. Might wind up playing the same team. If they beat them again, their resume looks really good to the college football playoff selection and to the voters who would probably have them, all the rankings would have them very high. With that said, can we talk about Friday night in Las Vegas? JB, you want to give me some thoughts on the field?
Yeah, a couple of subplots that I love about this game. Number one, this is essentially the game that got Spencer Danielson the full-time job at Boise State a year ago. He rallied the Broncos down the stretch of the season. Then they thumped UNLV, I believe, in the Mountain West Conference game the first weekend of December by 3+ touchdowns. And I think that's when Jeremiah Dickey Said he's going to go through the search, but felt like if he didn't find exactly what he wanted in the search, he would go with Spencer Danielson. So the subplot element I love about this matchup is two ADs who made really smart moves at a time in recent years when we've seen disastrous moves, because Eric Edwards, I think, at UNLV is the guy, Eric Harper at UNLV pounced at the opportunity to hire Barry Odom, a proven commodity, a guy who had some success as a head coach in the SEC when Charlotte fumbled the bag. And Charlotte and UNLV football programs are completely in disparate positions right now. And so kudos to Eric Harper, kudos at UNLV, kudos to Jeremiah Dickey at Boise State. I love those components. Then you have the Barry Odom defensive mind at UNLV for on-the-field action against Brennan Marion and the offensive ingenuity at UNLV, also then going against Spencer Danielson and Boise State and that noted rushing attack for the Broncos. So I love a lot of these subplot elements in this game. There's some key characters in college football for the last few seasons, but also specific to how this first guaranteed group of 5 playoff element is going to work out. And to Zach's point, yes, folks in Las Vegas has something to be excited about other than the bright lights and Adele's final few concerts.
Week 1, I watched a lot of Boise State at Georgia Southern, blown away by Ashton Jeanty, and I said, that guy's going to win the Heisman. And there's no doubt in my mind he's going to win the Heisman. The other thing that really impressed me was Sire Gaines. Jeanty would rip off an 80, the defense would go 3 and out, and they're back on the field, and they give Jeanty a couple of plays off. They bring in Sire Gaines. Sire Gaines was ripping them up. He was unbelievable as well. So I was blown away by both backs. Sire's been injured. I don't know if he's going to play in this game, to be honest. I don't think he played the last 2, maybe more.
He's only played 3 games all season.
Yeah. So So last week, Boise State was at Hawaii, and Jeanty had a very nice game, but they kind of pulled him. They had no other rushing attack at all, 0. Like nobody had a yard type thing. So, all right, we're going to ride Jeanty. We've got the best back. We're not real worried about that, but they are doubly dangerous when Sire plays. So with that said, how's this game play out, guys?
So to add on to your point real quick, Scott, so what I like about this game is the diversity in run games that we're going to see. So if you take the top 5, this is going into last week, you take the top 5 rushing offenses in the country, and then you look at the percentage their leading rusher has, Boise's far and away number 1. Ashton Jeanty has 72% of Boise's rushing yards. No one else was above 40%. And then among those top 5, UNLV was by far the most diverse. Their leading rusher is Haj Malik Williams, who, as we know, wasn't even their starting quarterback until a few weeks ago. He's got like 20% of their rushing yards, and he leads them in rushing. UNLV has 7 guys that average more than 5 yards a carry that run the ball at least a couple times a game. So you know what you're getting in Boise, and it's the best running back in college football, arguably the best player in college football coming at you 20-plus times. And you know what you're getting in UNLV, and that it's going to be one of 6 different guys that are going to run the football, but whoever it is, they're going to run the ball effectively.
I think some people who probably haven't watched Boise, but they've just heard about the Ashton Jeanty train, they think this is just a running team, power running team. They're not at all. Excellent spread offenses as well. They throw the ball really well, but Jeanty just gashes people. He'll go for 8. He'll go for 8. He'll go for 80. And I think he's got – I believe he's up until a Hawaii game, maybe even a Hawaii game, had at least a 60-yard touchdown in every game. It's just he's off the charts that good.
I think Boise is going to win the game, and it's for what you mentioned, the combination of their downfield passing along with the best running back in college football. It's just really tough for anybody to stop. And as good as UNLV is offensively, I just don't think they have the horses defensively to stop the ultimate horse in college football.
For me, I think that, yes, there are 2 components that I lean on. Who is the singular best player on the field in a game like this where you feel the matchup is relatively close? The best player on the field is Ashton Jeanty. Shout out to him, by the way, for launching his own scholarship this week at Boise State. We don't see a lot of that from student athletes during their playing days, so I think that's pretty dope. And then the other thing I lean on is the fact that, yeah, we all love watching the Boise State offense led by Ashton Jeanty, and we expect him to tear off a big gain every single game. And we love and have a lot of respect, I think, for Barry Odom and what he's done for that UNLV program as a whole, but particularly for the way that they play defense. But I don't think the Boise State defense is that bad, and I don't think it's talked about enough. So I think the combination of the fact that the Boise State defense is solid, coupled with Boise State having the best player in the game, leads me leaning the Broncos in this contest.
I have the utmost respect for Barry Odom. I think he's fantastic, great football coach. So he might make me eat my words. I don't think so. I like Boise by 13 plus. I think Jeanty is that good. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that. UNLV is a really good football team, and Barry Odom is the type of friend who will get this and he'll send it back to me with a yeah. Anyway, so if they stand up and win the game, I was dead wrong. I don't see it that way. I see Jeanty having a big moment, a big night. He recognizes what this is. Spencer does just a great job. Defensive staff is good. I like Boise in the realm of 2 touchdowns or more.
Not a hot take, but a Scott take. I like it.
and I'm willing to own it. All right, moving on. Just another I think this is an enormous game. Army and Navy are both undefeated. Having watched both, I think Army's a better team. I think Army's quarterback, I think, is fantastic. Young man, a leader. I mean, he single-handedly won JB, the Football Scoop Man of the Year last year.
That's my dog.
A great American right there. Great American. With that said, Navy has their shot this week. Navy is playing Notre Dame. JB, you happen to live in South Bend. You might have some good insight on this one. Can you give us the lay of the land on this one?
Yeah, huge opportunity contest for Navy, but don't discount how much it means to Notre Dame in this season. And that's why I think that's not necessarily great news for the midshipmen. Notre Dame has the very quality win to open the season at Texas A&M, beat a Louisville team that was undefeated and ranked number 15 at the time. But there's not a lot of just great signature moments that have occurred or waiting to occur for Notre Dame as it tries to accumulate college football playoff resume. Navy being ranked, Navy being undefeated, Navy having already smashed Memphis, and Navy having become something of a two-headed media darling along with Army, and deservedly so, means that Notre Dame is not overlooking the midshipmen this week. Now, Navy is an entirely different animal than a year ago when these two teams opened in Ireland. They went out and made the very bold hire of getting FCS head coach Drew Cronick away from Mercer, who had just taken Mercer into the playoffs and had that program really humming. And Drew Cronick also had been a very successful head coach at the D2 level at Lenoir-Rhyne, taking over that program after early on serving as Clay Hendricks' offensive coordinator at Furman. So Cronick has brought an entirely new element to the Navy offense, and they're only throwing about 12 passes a game, but when they were throwing 3, 4, 5 passes a game beforehand, those 12 passes are obviously that much more effective. They're the number 1 team in the country in red zone offense. I do think early on they will give Notre Dame some issues in this game, particularly offensively. The problem is Navy's defense. Even in beating Memphis by double digits, they gave up 660 yards offense to Memphis. They gave up 44 points to Memphis, and Memphis was on the field for 35 minutes. If Notre Dame's offense is on the field for 35 minutes, this won't be a 12-point game or anything like that. It'll be a 24-point game. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'm predicting a Notre Dame win by 24 points, but those are not components that necessarily lend themselves to a Navy upset in this contest. The other thing is that for as well as Navy is playing, for all the great things that it's doing on offense, they do only have one starter on their offensive line who even weighs 300 pounds. The rest of those guys are 285 or smaller. I think that's significant, particularly against the interior tandem that Notre Dame has there of Riley Mills and Howard Cross. Howard Cross, an All-American a year ago. Riley Mills on a number of award lists, and a guy who had NFL draft options last year, but used NIL to his advantage and came back for a final season at Notre Dame. So that's the way I see this contest. Plus, Another note that I think helps Notre Dame, even though this is, again, not your dad's, not your granddad's, not even your uncle's Navy offense, is that Cross, Mills, right there in the middle, right there in the middle of the D-line, Jack Kaiser, the versatile linebacker who can play even safety for the Irish, and then Bronco Nagurski, reigning winner, Xavier Watts. All those guys have played against Navy multiple times in the past.
Valid. Good point. Zach, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought John nailed it with the Army. I wrote previously this season about how well Army and Navy are throwing the football, and that's been the key to their success in expanding the field. That Memphis game, they were 10 of 14 through the air for 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I think it's going to have to be something like that for Navy to stay in this race. You're not going to be able to push Notre Dame around on 15-play scoring drives. You're going to have to expand the field while also forcing Notre Dame to defend 6, 7, 8 gaps on every snap in the run game as well. The fascinating thing for me is it's 2 things that are just hard to simulate in practice. One, for Notre Dame's defense, it's the precision at which Navy runs its offense. And for Navy, it's just the level of athlete that you don't see week in, week out. And obviously Navy and Notre Dame play every single season, so they're prepared for that on a yearly basis. But week to week, you don't see the level of size and strength that Notre Dame plays with every single week. And I can see Navy winning this game, but I'm going to, as the future football scoop man of the year, I'm going to take Notre Dame.
And one more quick interesting point that I want to make here. In an only college football, only portal era moment, only with these schools, is that running the scout team offense a fair amount this week for Notre Dame is Tyler Buckner. For those of you who don't remember, Tyler Buckner was the guy who came off the injury list to lead Marcus Freeman to a bowl win against South Carolina in 2022 to cap Freeman's first year at the helm, after Buckner had been out with a broken collarbone for about 8 weeks and Drew Pine elected to go into the transfer portal. Then Buckner follows Tommy Rees to Alabama after the Irish bring in Sam Hartman last year, and Tommy Rees takes the Bama job. Jared Parker takes over at offense. Then Tyler Buckner comes back to Notre Dame this spring, is on the lacrosse team that helps Notre Dame win a national title, asked if he can walk back onto the football team, has been a walk-on wide receiver for this football team, ran a fake field goal in last week's win against Georgia Tech, now is running the scout team this week for the Irish against Navy because he has experience in that. Only in college football, only in America. What a fabulous story.
That is a great story. Good stuff, JB. All right, so I think Boise is going to handle UNLV. I see this one as a real battle. I see this one closer than people think. I don't think either team wins by 2 touchdowns. I think this is hopefully a great football game for America. And I think America would love that. America loves Army, Navy. A lot of America loves Notre Dame. Navy, Notre Dame. I think this one has potential. So Zach's alluding to, boy, he's got a big lead. It's been shrinking a little bit. I'm a little worried about that. It's been shrinking a little bit. Zach got off to a really good start. Picks a lot of chalk. It's okay. Hey, if chalk wins, chalk wins. Nothing wrong with that. We'll see. We'll be releasing our picks on all these games later this afternoon. Stay tuned, folks. I don't tend to go chalk, though. Just saying. All right. As long as we're talking group of 5, great football games, let's stay there. There's one more I want to get to, and then we'll get to some other big games. Tulane's at North Texas. Zach, it's in your blood. Used to live in Denton. Give me North Texas' look on this. And we all know what John Summerall's squad comes with, and it's a lot. Does North Texas have enough to win this game?
I mean, if they win it, it's going to have to be more hero ball from Chandler Morris. I mean, the guy puts up about 450 yards of total offense and 4 touchdowns just about weekly. I wrote about Eric Morris, made headlines this week, calling out the fans for complaining about an 11 a.m. kick. It's the first time North Texas on record will play a Saturday home game to air on ESPN or ESPN2 ever.
Wow.
Some teams do it every week. North Texas has never done it. It's a homecoming game. You should have 27,000, 28,000 plus to watch the Mean Green take on the Green Wave. I think North Texas, what they've done is impressive, and it's even more impressive considering just how banged up this team is, specifically offensively. They're down multiple running backs, multiple offensive linemen, still scoring points. I don't think they have the horses to stop Tulane consistently. I'm going to take Tulane, but what they've done is even more impressive than the 5-2 record.
Tulane's fundamentally sound. They don't lose games. Kansas State snuck by early in the season. They didn't play their best against Oklahoma, but boy, they should have won that game. Other than those two, Tulane's undefeated. Playing with a freshman quarterback who's just balling. They're a fun team to watch and fundamentally sound. JB?
Yeah, I was just going to note that we've said on this podcast, probably going all the way back to August, but almost on a weekly basis, that college football has never, ever been more quarterback driven. And because of that, I like North Texas to make this a very entertaining game with what Chandler Morris is doing, with the type of stat line that he puts up week after week, with the competitive fire that he plays with. You can tell football's in his blood, it's in his DNA, and it shows in the way he plays on Saturdays. It's really, really fun to watch them play. But Summerall, you would think that he was a Saban disciple of the way that his teams approach the football. And I mean that approach football games. And I mean that in the utmost positive way. You just said it, they're fundamentally sound. No, they have a fastidious attention to detail so often that I think is why they win these games, even when they represent an opportunity for the opposing team. And that's why I think John Summerall is one of the best young head coaches anywhere in college football. I think John Summerall, and this is not a knock on Tulane, that's why I think John Summerall is a future power conference head coach at a very high level program.
Doug Samuels isn't with us today, but if he was, he'd have been grinning, chuckling at JB using fastidious. Well done. Okay, let's reel it back to Thursday night football. Syracuse is at Pitt. Combined, they have one loss. I see a great football game. Fran Brown has those dudes believing, playing. Quarterback's playing well. He's got a little new life in him. Quarterback plays well. Pitt's quarterback's been playing out of his mind. Give me some thoughts there, Zach.
I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on this game within the coaching community. I think there's a lot of interest in what Cade Bell has done in year one. Fran Brown is in the running for rookie head coach of the year. And I mean, we say it every week because this new paradigm of college football makes it more relevant. This is an elimination game in the conference for the ACC championship game, which is where you're going to be playing for a 3 or 4 seed into the college football playoff. You've got 4 undefeated teams, of which Pitt is one. Pitt's got to go to SMU, I believe, here in a couple weeks. Syracuse has 1 loss. If they lose this game, they're more than likely done. This is I don't know who's playing in the NFL. I don't care. This is your Thursday night game of the week.
100%. JB, give us some thoughts.
Yeah, for me, the thing you hate about this is that it's such a traditional rivalry, like Stanford tripped up Syracuse to keep the Orange from being undefeated right now. So it's unfortunate when something like that happens and history gets in the way, because otherwise we would have 2 teams with 0 losses tonight. I was just checking the over-under in this game because while you definitely think defense on most years with Pitt, except maybe a few years ago with Kenny Pickett, as you guys just alluded to, the Cade Bell experiment is working so well at Pitt, and then McCord is playing so well at quarterback for Syracuse that I like the over in this game that is around 62 points. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think ultimately the Pitt defense, particularly the back end of the Pitt defense, the Pitt secondary, which is so good year after year after year, I think that proves to be the difference. And the fact that we've talked about Cade Bell, we've talked about McCord running the show at Syracuse. We have not talked about Eli Holstein running Cade Bell's offense for Pitt. Eli Holstein has done a very nice job, is a huge reason why the Panthers are sitting here 6-0. I would probably lean toward the home team in this game because I think it's that close and has the potential to be that much fireworks on display from an offensive standpoint. But I like Pitt to keep their undefeated streak going just a little bit longer. And Pitt remains one of the most significant bounce back teams in all of college football this year. The fact that they really struggled last year, didn't sniff a bowl game, but now they've found a way to win their first 6 and in position to go 7-0. They're poised to reflect one of the biggest single season turnarounds. And that leads me to one other point I should have mentioned earlier, and that is that as we talk about Army-Navy with Coastal Carolina losing is now among the nation's leaders in consecutive wins because the Army is now at an 11-game win streak dating all the way back to last year.
You know, Pat Narduzzi, his staff had gotten a little old, gotten a little stale. Charlie Partridge, who's just an absolute wonderful football coach, defensive line coach, got an opportunity to go up with the Colts. And Pat said, you know, all right, I'm losing Charlie. Good chance to remake some things. Had some really good men, but he said, I need something fresh here. It's just not clicking after a really down season. AD was in a weird position. AD was looking to get out. Eventually, because of that, the administration made a change at AD. Pat needed a good season, and he bet on himself. He bet on bringing in some just absolute fresh blood, and giving some guys that he kept some more power. He empowered a couple of guys on the current staff, and it's working. I mean, they're 6-0. Yeah, I'm not sure who I'm going to pick on that one. We're going to release the picks in a couple hours. Be interesting. Zach's going chalk. That's what he does. Okay, so let's go to Saturday, and I'm going to bounce around a couple of games, kind of short thoughts here. We talked about the pressure that was on Sark in the Georgia game, and we saw what happened there. Texas goes to Vandy, and Texas can't lose to Vandy. That would be like implosion status. Zach, give me a degree of confidence that Texas is going to handle their business in Nashville.
The confidence starts with the defense. I mean, the offense imploded against Georgia. The defense played a winning effort. I mean, if your offense is a C, your defense plays you a good enough chance to where you're 50-50 or better to win that game. So the path to victory rides with the Texas defense. Traditionally, Pete Kwiatkowski has been comfortable playing a bend, don't break type defense, and that's worked well. I don't think that plays into your hands at Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt wants to stay in the field, wants to bleed clock, wants to protect its own defense by limiting possessions. I think you need to be opportunistically aggressive to force them into some 3-and-outs or 5-and-outs and keep the ball on their side of the field, not let them bleed clock. But at the same time, Vanderbilt's very good. They basically run a modern version of the triple option. And if you're not assignment sound, if you're not really good at tackling in space and one-on-one opportunities, they're going to stay on the field. They might score touchdowns. So the path to victory rides with a really good week from the Texas defense. Texas should be able to throw the ball on Vanderbilt. They need to run the ball better. They need to throw the ball better. They need Quinn Ewers to play a really good game because you can't you're at the risk of if he doesn't play well, making one player bigger than the program. And I wrote this week how important he's been to this program, specifically to Sark, but he's got to hold up his end of the deal and play at least B-level football in this game.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt, for all it's done well this year, and look, all the way back to the opening day on August 31st, it was no fluke when they beat Virginia Tech. And so they have 3 incredibly quality wins already this year against teams ranked at the time. When you look at Virginia Tech, you look at Alabama, and you look at Kentucky. So, but then as Scott and I discussed earlier this week, there's still meat on the bone. It's a watershed breakthrough year for Clark Lee and company. It's what AD should be studying around the country to say, I'm going to hire my guy that I have the absolute most belief in, and I'm going to give him time to unleash his vision and develop his vision. And that's what Clark Lee is doing. And yet there's still no guarantee that Vanderbilt will get bowl eligibility. I think the Commodores will, but that means they're going to have to beat either a Texas or a South Carolina or an Auburn, and you don't go into the season thinking any of those is a layup game for the Commodores. But for Texas, you make a great point about the defense, Zach, and it also tells you how poor the Texas offense played last week, in that the Texas defense didn't allow 300 yards of offense. It forced 3 turnovers, and Texas had no prayer to win that contest. But if Texas's defense gets a similar early stop this week after the offense, or giving the offense a chance to get a very workmanlike drive, if Texas gets up in this game 10 to 14 points, especially 14 points, then I think it gets over in a hurry and it turns into a long day. As good as Vanderbilt is, as good as Diego Pavia is at off-script stuff, they have to control tempo, they have to control pace, and they're not equipped to be a come-from-behind team, not from those kinds of margins.
My take on how Vanderbilt has found this success is different. I think Vanderbilt is more akin to the Pat Narduzzi situation. Clark Lee was not finding success. It was about to implode. They were at the end of the rope. They love Clark, the human. The schemes, the personnel, it wasn't working. And they gave him a last shot. And the last shot was, you got to go find somebody different. And he brought Jerry Kill, and Jerry Kill brought Tim Beck, his offensive coordinator. He brought Diego Pavia, his quarterback. And Jerry Kill made a lot of changes within that program. And Clark's still the head coach. Clark made the decision, and he had the gumption to say, I'm willing to hire a head coach with a lot more experience than me, who's been a lot more successful than me. And that's not an easy move to make, but it's proved very successful. And I speak with a lot of head coaches, a lot of senior associate ADs, a lot of other people who are involved in hirings. And a lot of guys go, hey, who's that Jerry Kill out there that we could bring in that could really help us get to the next level? There's not a lot of Jerry Kills, but there are. All right. With that said, that's going to be a good game. I'm with you guys. Vanderbilt's got to win. Like John just said, Texas, they got to beat South Carolina. They got to beat Auburn. They got to beat one of those games just to get to bowl eligibility. They got the Vols at the end of the season. That doesn't seem like yeah. Okay. Moving right along. All right. Doug early on predicted 4 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. I don't know that he had Illinois in that number, but Illinois is at Oregon. Each team has 1 loss. I'm sorry, Oregon is undefeated. Illinois has 1 loss. Can Illinois shock the Ducks in Austin?
Going into last week, if you told me that in the Illinois-Michigan game, that one team would throw for in the 200s and the other team would throw for 90, I would have bet my children's lives, my pets' lives, everything on Illinois being that 200 and Michigan being that 90. And I was very wrong. So all that to say, I don't think Illinois has the offense to go to Allison Stadium and win the game. Oregon's given up in the 30s to the best player in college football, to the most, maybe arguably the most dangerous offense in college football. They've held everyone else to 14 or below. Illinois is not on the same plane offensively as Ohio State, as Boise State. I don't know what the spread is. Brett Bielema is a great coach. I think they can go out there and frustrate Oregon defensively, or excuse me, offensively, but defensively, Oregon versus the Illinois offense is too much of a mismatch for Illinois to actually win the game.
Yeah, the coaching job that Bielema's doing has to be up there for Big Ten Coach of the Year consideration this year, and they were pretty thorough overall in the way that they handled Michigan last week in those awesome throwback Red Grange uniforms celebrating 100 years of Memorial Stadium. And overall, Illinois is a very good red zone offensive team. They're in the top 20. They're scoring, 91, 92, 93% of the time, right in there. My problem with Illinois in the red zone is that I think they settle for too many field goals. They're scoring a touchdown on about 2 out of every 3 trips in the red zone. You can't score field goals and beat Oregon. I don't think Illinois can beat Oregon on the road anyway, but I particularly don't think a team that thus far has an identity of having to settle for 1 or 2 field goals a game that should be touchdowns is equipped to beat Oregon. And Oregon has already shown a bit of its maturity by handling Ohio State and then having a short week and going and dispatching Purdue cross country 35-0. And then also by doing so, got an extra day of rest in advance of this Illinois game.
I believe the Ducks win this game. I think it's way closer than people think. I think it's like a 3-touchdown line. I would take Illinois' points all the time. I think Illinois is really well coached. Dan Lanning's well coached operation as well. Brett knows what he's doing. He's brought in some really smart coaches. Aaron Henry on the defensive side, he's a guy. They're sound, well coached team. Anyway, I'd take the points in a heartbeat. With that said, I'm very grateful that Zach doesn't actually bet in real life because he'd lost his kids. It would have been terrible. It would have been heartbreaking. And he just takes chalk in our picks. But whatever. Who cares? Okay, moving right along. LSU has been playing really well. They got tripped up week 1, in Vegas against SC. Just, they could have won the game. They just didn't. They kind of found their identity. They're playing really well. They got to go into Kyle Field, where of late they have not had much success. Zach, give me thoughts there.
First of all, I'm onto your strategy of trying to bait me into taking a dumb upset pick. I'm onto it. Second of all, I think you're spot on with LSU, and I think the same argument or same point can be made about A&M. Both of these teams lost high-profile Week 1 games. Everyone's laughing at them because it's fun to see the SEC lose games in high-profile environments. They got back to work and said, all right, that was disappointing, but it's the beginning of our season, not the end. And these teams have done a great job of finding themselves. We've talked about Blake Baker and how the LSU defense has improved. I listened to Brian Kelly talk at his press conference, and he was like he was repeating your words of they've done a really good job of finding their offense with Garrett Nussmeier and what he does well. A&M's done the same thing. Colin Klein deserves a lot of respect for adapting the offense to whatever quarterback's available. Eli Drinkwitz came out and said before they played Missouri, Marcel Reed's their quarterback. He's their quarterback, their running team. A&M puts Connor Wegman out there, and he absolutely dices them up in what's one of the most single individual performances I've seen by a team this season. And then I think A&M's done a really good job of taking on Mike Elko's personality of we're going to be about the work. We're just going to put our heads down and play football and not worry about all the other stuff. So having said that, I saw the stat floating around that A&M has beaten a top 10 team at home something like 5 times in the last 8 years or something like that, whereas Texas hadn't done it at all since 1999. Going into the Georgia game, I saw a lot of Aggies putting that stat out there. Wow. So A&M has this history of winning, beating good teams at Kyle Field. However, I feel like most of those games are upsets. It's knocking off a number 1 A&M or number 1 Alabama as an unranked team. The opportunities for A&M to level up as a program, that Notre Dame game, the 2013 Alabama game where they hosted them. A&M seems like they fall short in these moments, and this is an opportunity to level up. Whoever wins this game is statistically overwhelmingly likely to go to Atlanta and play for a conference championship. If you go to Atlanta, you're in the playoff. Yep. If you win in Atlanta, you're a top 2 seed and a favorite at that point to play for a national championship. So that's what's the opportunity here for both of these teams. In a season where the focus has been on Georgia, on Texas, on Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss. Here are LSU and A&M quietly somehow playing in what's kind of a conference semifinal game. It's a lot of words. I don't know who's going to win the game. I've thought deeply about this game. I'm 50-50, but I think both of these coaching staffs deserve a lot of credit for getting their teams here.
Yeah, I think that for me, what stands out about this is that both teams are maybe imperfect on defense, but they're doing a lot of great things behind the line of scrimmage of the opposition. And they're 2 of the better teams in college football at recording sacks and therefore also amassing tackles for loss. I think LSU has 44 on the year, Texas A&M maybe 51. They're just separated by like 5 or 6 yards in tackle for loss yardage acquired, and both are over 200. So I think that's significant. But I think that if the LSU defense affects Connor Wigman, he's more prone to making a catastrophic turnover than what we've seen thus far from Garrett Nussmeier. And so I think that if Garrett Nussmeier gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage on a sack or a scramble where he just has to duck out of bounds, he's not shown a propensity to make a catastrophic mistake. And I think the fact that he hasn't made those catastrophic mistakes plus stretches the field so well, gives LSU a very solid chance in this game. And to your point, Zach, not only does the winner of this contest, for all the analytics and projection and everything like that, have an overwhelming chance to be in the SEC championship game. But to your point, if you're in the SEC championship, you're not only going to be in the playoff, you're going to, at worst case scenario, host an opening round playoff game if you don't win it and get the bye. So there's so many ramifications in this game. And this was a rivalry contest, even all the way back in the 80s and 90s, and Scott knows it much better than me. But these two teams played regularly even before conference expansion started bringing them onto the calendar on an annual basis. There were those Jackie Sherrill teams that would play against, or R.C. Slocum teams that would play against the Bayou Bengals, even when they had like Mike Archer and those guys coaching.
Yeah, these two teams, in addition to playing on the field, they recruit heavily against each other. They're really geographically very close, like basically 5 hours down the road, maybe even a little bit less. Really, really close. Man, it's going to be a good football game. I mean, guys, Saturday is just loaded with great football games. I got like 10 more I want to talk through. Penn State's undefeated. They go to Wisconsin, who has kind of found something.
Yeah.
Right? Can Wisconsin – okay, I'm going to say it the other way. Does Penn State have enough offense to beat Wisconsin?
I don't think – if Wisconsin gets out early with Camp Randall Magic and the House of Pain just sitting there waiting to play to kick off the fourth quarter and everybody's jumping around, I don't know. I don't know that they can. I'm still not convinced that Penn State is equipped to come back from multiple scores against anyone in the country not named Lincoln Riley's USC Trojans, because they're the worst bullpen. USC's new nickname should be the Arson Squad, because they just make it worse.
Teams that lead at halftime are going on to win about 85% of the time so far this season. The team that leads at halftime in this game is 100% chance going to win the game.
I have had nearly no confidence in Penn State's quarterbacks for the last decade. I've only seen this young man play in a couple of games, but when he's on, he's on. So we'll see how he comes out. But I was really impressed with this young man a couple of times.
Yeah, to his credit, Drew Aller, he entered that USC game with, I think, only 3 career interceptions. And he threw 3 interceptions in that game and still had the moxie to lead Penn State to that overtime victory. So I'm not taking anything away from Drew Aller and Penn State. You had to keep your belief. You had to still go win that game. You just did it against the worst bullpen in college football.
You know, we mentioned Pat Narduzzi retooled his staff. Clark Lee just handed the keys to Jerry Kill and said, what do we need to do? James Franklin has 3 new coordinators, right? I brought in Kotelnicki from Kansas, Tom Allen to take over the defense, and then Justin Lustig, who's just a really good football coach on special teams. They're undefeated, boys. That's going to be a great game. I'm fired up about that one. I'm going to take you to a different direction. 2 teams that are 6-1. Yep. SMU's at Duke. SMU stumbled against BYU. Duke's at home. SMU has gotten a lot better. Can Duke find enough gumption to stop SMU enough times for Duke to sneak out a win is the way I would see this game playing.
Not unless SMU turns it over multiple times. I mean, that's the only way they beat Florida State. And Rhett Lashley, every time he gets the opportunity, he says, I'm going to take the football in the opening kickoff. We're going to go score, and the field is going to tilt in our direction. And if SMU does that, the odds are going to flip heavily against Duke. Duke averaged like 3.2 yards per play, which is going to be one of the lowest in a win across the entire season against Florida State. Florida State handed that game turnovers on like 3 straight plays or something like that. If SMU, who's played really well since Kevin Jennings has taken full command of the offense, if SMU doesn't give Duke the game, they're going to win the game.
And that's a great point about turnovers, Zach, because Duke is among the best in the country at forcing takeaways. The Blue Devils have 13 turnovers forced this year. None of us can be surprised that a Manny Diaz coach team is doing a great job turning the ball over. If Duke has especially early success in turning over the Mustangs, then yes, Duke can win this game. Otherwise, I believe that SMU has too much overall offensive firepower and has played improved defense, I think, on a week-to-week basis.
The picks are coming out in just a few hours, man. Stay tuned. We'll see what happens with that one. Missouri's going in to Bryant-Denny.
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Give it to me, JB. What do you see?
Well, look, the Noel kid apparently is out for Missouri. I know that the SEC has those player availability, don't call them injury reports, player availability reports that are mandatory on Wednesday evening in game weeks unless that team happens to have a rare conference Thursday night game. So player availability reports went out Wednesday evening. It does not look good for Missouri, not only for Noel, the running back, but Brady Cook, who, if he doesn't come back last week, they don't win. And if Hugh Freeze doesn't go into a shell that I don't think any of us has ever seen Hugh Freeze do offensively before, Missouri also doesn't win that game. So with no Noel and with Brady Cook at best severely limited with an ankle and more likely not to play than to play, and a pissed off Alabama team that's probably going to be very sick of hearing about their shirts tucked in by Saturday and their fan base giving up on them. And the fact that deep down Alabama has to know it not only should have beaten Tennessee, but it had every ample opportunity to have complete control of that game by halftime, and instead was only ahead 7-0 at home. We said going into the season, I thought Alabama could be a 3-loss team. I still think that, but this is not one of those losses. And I think they handle Missouri, and I think they end up winning this game by 3+ touchdowns.
I'm not willing to go there, but I do think Alabama wins. Alabama's got to run the football better. They're not running the football consistently, certainly not with their running backs. They spend John, you might know the stat better than I did, but I think they're spending more time recently in third and long than they are in third and medium and third and short. And if you can get Jalen Milroe in third and medium or third and short, he's very dangerous. 3rd and 7+ is not his ball game, as it is for any quarterback, but it's definitely not him. And they can run the football. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I apologize, ZB. I'm surprised that Jalen Milroe has regressed in throwing accuracy, and especially because, again, the respect we all have on this pod for Kalen DeBoer, and specifically what he just got through doing for 2 years with Michael Penix at Washington to turn him into a Heisman contender and a top 10 draft pick, that the Falcons said, we got to have this guy, even though we just signed Kirk Cousins for 80 million bones. So I'm very surprised at the regression of Jalen Milroe, and I think because of that, that's made the Alabama ground game that much more ineffective. And the fact of the matter is, we talk about Jalen Milroe's regression and that he missed wide open receivers last week. We would have been talking about it even longer if he didn't have Ryan Williams making transcendent plays all across the course of this season. Ryan Williams, mind you, who should be getting ready for his high school winter formal.
Yeah, it's amazing how thin Alabama's wide receiver core is. It's Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, and then nobody else.
Is the offensive line not being dominant play into that?
Yeah, but I don't think
that's true for every team.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know his offensive line's pretty good? Indiana. Cignetti has, college game day is there. He knows what he's got right in front of him, and I think he wants to continue to make statements.
Yeah.
Washington's in town. Whew. I like IU.
Yeah, look, the Curtis Rourke injury is the only reason that this game merits closer inspection, because the IU quarterback has a thumb injury and will be out at least this week. We don't know the nature of that. Is that a thumb injury that's sprained? Is that a ligament injury in the thumb that can make things a little dicier longer term? We just know that Sig has said he will definitively be back this season. In the meantime, they insert Taven Jackson, the former 4-star recruit who initially began his career at Tennessee, signed with the Vols, didn't play much there, never had a chance to beat out Hendon Hooker or Joe Milton, and then saw the writing on the wall with Scott's favorite player in America, Nico Iamaleava. And obviously Iamaleava has taken the reins to that offense, and it is Iamaleava's offense. That's 3 in a row just for you. Count them. Bingo. But I use physicality in this game. I use home field advantage, and IU hosting its first ever Saturday football game day means that not only does IU win this contest, but IU also handles that 6.5 point line for any of you foolish enough to listen to my gambling advice.
If you're Signetti, you go up to Taven Jackson and say, "Look, young man, I built you a Ferrari. I don't need you. Just don't crash it into a light pole. Just do. We're a really good team on just stay in the lanes, and we may not win 56-7 like last week, but we'll win handily."
Speaking of 56-7, what is Lane Kiffin looking to do in the Grove? Vaught Hemingway, Oklahoma comes down. Oklahoma's a mess. Is Lane
Lane Kiffin's built his reputation on he doesn't win any important games, but he wins all the less than important games 56-3. And that's why people have him. He's hoodwinked people into thinking he's a top 5 coach in college football. We're going to find out where the bottom is for Oklahoma. Maybe it was when they were down 21-0 to South Carolina, 5 minutes and 20 seconds into the game. Maybe it was when they were down 32-3, when they gifted South Carolina 8 points, when South Carolina was trying to get off the field. Or maybe it's still in front of them. We don't know. There's no way to know at this time. Joe John Finley is going to be calling plays with help from Kevin Johns. But Joe John Finley is going to be calling plays for the first time against a top 3 yards per play defense. Oklahoma's defense has to be frustrated, getting no help from their offense against a top 3 yards per play unit in Ole Miss. This could get ugly, or maybe Oklahoma stabilized. No way to know.
Your disdain for Lane Kiffin and those plucky underdogs at Ole Miss that were just barely in the college football playoff conversation for our fearless leader, even as a preseason number 6 team, is baffling to me. And I don't think Lane Kiffin would tell you he thinks he's a top 5 coach. But what he has done, what is undeniable, is that he's brought Ole Miss football to the forefront of the college football conversation. They have to win this game to stay there. Then they'll have an opportunity contest against Georgia that I don't think they'll win, but they'll still have that opportunity contest there. He took FAU to double-digit wins before getting the Ole Miss job. And no, he has not won enough of the big games at Ole Miss, but he hasn't inherited, say, the program that Kalen DeBoer inherited that turned around and lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee, both in the same season for the first time since I want to say like 1981 or 82. No, well, not 81 because Tennessee didn't beat Alabama in 81. So maybe 82 if that was the year. I know that was the year Tennessee first beat Alabama and tore down the goalposts and put Johnny Majors on its shoulder and threw the goalposts into the Tennessee River. So I think Lane Kiffin is great for college football. I don't think he's a top 5 coach, but I think what he's done is one of the 5 or 10 more impressive jobs to get Ole Miss up to here to where a guy like Scott Russell would call them a potential national championship winning team.
To be clear, and I appreciate you pressing me on the issue, and I should probably clarify. I think Lane Kiffin, I think what he did as Alabama's offensive coordinator, now that we're 10 years removed from that, I think it's still underrated. What he did as FAU's head coach is underrated. I think he's great for college football. My frustration is with the discourse around Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss more than him himself.
Yeah, look, and you're fair there, and I'm needling you. But to say that Lane Kiffin has never won a big game, I just don't agree with, because you can go all the way back to his cameo year, and that's all it was, a cameo at Tennessee as head coach in 2009 when under the lights he upset South Carolina and just left the Gamecocks so chagrined to have lost that game like 30-16, and that was a big win for Tennessee at the time and a really big win for Lane Kiffin. There was 2011 at USC when he absolutely paddled Brian Kelly and Notre Dame, a game that the Irish were expected to win. And so there have been moments, but in the SEC, he has not gotten that one significant beaver pelt that he needs on the wall.
I'm at a bit of a loss for words, which doesn't happen often. So early, pre-week 1, we recorded our one bold prediction. Mine was crystal clear. Mine was the Oregon Ducks are going to win the national championship. Oregon's never won a national championship. I thought it was pretty bold. Zach was pretty bold. Zach went an undefeated Miami advances all the way to semifinals. That's straight up bold. Doug threw in 4 Big Ten teams to the playoffs. Y'all keep bringing up this, like, I talked about Ole Miss. I don't even remember talking about Ole Miss, but whatever. My prediction is very clear. But the weird one is we're not going to talk about it. Kansas is at Kansas State this week. It's a night game. It's in Manhattan, Kansas.
No, it's
JB, you want to give me any thoughts on that one?
What I will say is my bold prediction has, for all the boldness, the flames of its disintegration are even more glaring, even more bold, even more ebullient. That's for Doug. Maliava. But Kansas is the number 1 team in college football in red zone offense. That probably doesn't even last through the weekend. Kansas State wins this game. Kansas is disappointing. But much like those disgruntled denizens of the Grove, Kansas fans need to remember what Lance Leipold has done and where they were before he got there.
And what
one of my favorite moments of this season was Lance Leipold releasing a statement on Kansas's 1-3 start. Because 10 years ago, every Kansas fan would be like, "Oh, we're playing football right now." The fact that he had raised his bar so high that he had to calm the fans down because they were so upset that Kansas started 1-3 is the ultimate backhanded compliment to himself.
Yeah, here's how much Lance Leipold has raised the bar in Kansas. He's made Bill Self work harder. Bill Self has had to work harder to get Kansas basketball back on top because Lance Leipold and the football program applied some pressure there. So anyway, hats off for the big picture job. The little picture this weekend will not be good.
Early on in the season, I saw some stuff out of Gus Malzahn's offense that was really entertaining and good, and then the wheels fell off. So BYU, who's undefeated, is playing in the bounce house. I mean, I like BYU in the game, just telling you, but I don't know what happened to Gus's team.
Look, the bus has a chance in this game. They got out of the garage last week. In a lot of ways, they gave away that Iowa State game. Big 12 has 2 undefeated teams left. Nobody talks about that very much. Big 12 has more undefeated teams left than in the other conference, I think, in college football. So, tied for the Big 10 of the power conferences. So there you go. But this will be an incredibly tough test for Kalani Sitake and the Cougs. Do not discount the bus. Not only getting out of the garage, but getting some juice going there on the Sunshine Parkway in Florida to get a win.
Yeah. The Gus bus either goes 80 miles an hour and destroys everything in its path, or it's smoking on the side of the highway. And it seems to be as good a guess to anybody, which it's going to be. As John mentioned, the good for UCF is that they should have beat Iowa State. The bad is that they should have beat Iowa State and didn't. You'd hope that they can marshal that into another great performance at home in the bounce house. But BYU's if Iowa State's not the best defensive team in the Big 12, then BYU is.
Florida State's wearing turquoise against Miami. I have nothing else to say about the game.
I don't care if Florida State wore Zach's beloved Cowboys uniforms, which, by the way, they're another band of underachievers this year. Hope nobody made their Super Bowl prediction a bold Dallas Cowboys prediction. It's as effective as my Kansas bold prediction. But no, Florida State has no shot in this game. Zach was all over the Oklahoma scene a couple of weeks ago about the changes would have to be made on the offensive side of the ball for the Sooners. I would expect similar discourse coming out of Tallahassee.
I refer to you two humans as college football experts, and I believe the depth of your knowledge has been on display in this 1 hour. I've been blown away by some of the things you guys know. I got one that I don't understand. I've done no research, but if you guys know the answer to this, I will be stunned. How or why is South Alabama favored by a touchdown over Louisiana Monroe?
I don't know. Vegas hasn't watched the Warhawks. That's not that great answer, but that's my answer.
Is that game home for the Jags?
In Mobile.
So that's 3.5 points there. And then I think you probably are examining the rosters and feeling like the depth of the South Alabama roster is overall superior to the depth of the ULM roster. But South Alabama went and lost at Arkansas State. ULM is certainly very capable of winning this contest.
I'm going to throw an other end of the spectrum game at you guys. I have no pride in. I almost feel dirty bringing this game up. Two of the worst teams in FBS. Utah State is playing at Wyoming. Neither team is good at all.
This is one of those where you got to point at the other guy. If we can't beat these guys, both time at pickoff, they're both going to be pointing at each other, saying, "If we can't beat these guys, we're in deep trouble."
All right, let's get more exciting. Michigan State's playing Michigan. Rivalry, dirty, lay it on the line. Michigan State's shown some spunk of late. Michigan is sputtering of late. How's this one play out? Any thoughts?
Is this game in East Lansing or Ann Arbor?
No.
Ann Arbor, I believe.
Okay.
It is.
I agree with your assessment. Michigan State's going to the big house thinking they're going to win this game, and Michigan's still very much. I feel like they're no closer to finding out who they are offensively than they were in August. And now that we're knocking on the door of November, that's a huge problem. Michigan's in very real danger to go from a national championship to missing a bowl game. And if they don't win this game, the odds probably flip in that favor.
Yeah.
So if Michigan State beats them, if Michigan State wins this game, Michigan would still have 4 wins. They got Oregon coming to town.
Loss.
They have to go to Indiana.
Loss.
And Ohio State.
Northwestern
Loss.
coming to town and then finish Ohio State. Yeah. I mean, they literally could miss a bowl game if they don't win this game. Bubba, let that sink in.
I think Sharon Moore is going to have to make changes after this but I mean, at that point, you'd be talking about your coaching for your job in 2025.
Well, I mean,
I'm not willing to say that, but
Sharon Moore, you can talk about needing to make changes, but on what side of the ball? Offense? Well, Sharon Moore recruited that offense. Like, you don't have the excuse there that you took over a program and you didn't know the personnel. It's your damn personnel. So I think that with what Michigan State did at home last week against Iowa, the way not that Maryland's great, but the way it served notice early with a win at Maryland, it had every opportunity to beat what at the time was a ranked Boston College team. Michigan State unequivocally enters this game with way more belief resting on its sideline and way more positive energy resting on its sideline. And if Michigan State can get out early, then I fully would expect Michigan State to win this game. The only hesitation in me is that Michigan is the home team. But the Johnson kid, their All-American defensive back, he's got injury status questions. And Michigan, we're starting to see more and more teams deal with opt-outs around the country. How long before it starts impacting even more teams? We saw Colin Lacey, the great wide receiver for Louisville, mid this week, opt out. We saw a couple of USC players do it in recent weeks. When teams accumulate losses and dwindle their playoff chances, we're going to see more and more of this.
Zach, I think it's fair also to say Michigan's down because they cheated so badly and they were embarrassed by that. And then NCAA came in and leveled these. And they self-assessed all these penalties and they took all their best players off the field and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, none of that's happened.
Instant karma's going to get you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we could talk about all sorts of other games. We're an hour in. I think we're going to cut this one off. Gents,
can I bring up one game? One game?
Yes.
FCS football, baby. Nobody loves FCS on the Scoop Pod like I do. It's the Interstate Series, the South Dakota Showdown. South Dakota versus South Dakota State. These two teams have met almost 115 times. It's separated by just 5 wins overall in the total series. They're 5-2 and 6-1 entering this game. I know you will have a hard time finding it on your TV, but find it on your social media, find it on your highlights, find it somewhere and watch a recap of this game. It's freaking awesome FCS football.
Are we in South Dakota? We're late October. We got snow or no? Probably not.
It wouldn't surprise me because we were just fortunate enough to be out in Wyoming earlier this month, and there's all sorts of snow now in Wyoming. In fact, I get the Yellowstone National Park text alerts, and there are roads closed in Yellowstone today due to snow and wintry conditions.
Hey, Grizzly 399. We lost Grizzly 399 Tuesday night. It's a shame. I think most of you guys, maybe Zach doesn't, are aware this is the legendary bear in the Grand Tetons. Mama to 25?
30, I think. Close, yeah.
Yeah,
and lost her not to old age. That's the painful part is it's lost in an automobile accident there in the Snake River Canyon. Super sad stuff.
What is happening?
Stay with us past an hour, you get weird facts.
You get more knowledge. No, it's not weird facts. You get bonus knowledge, baby.
This is why you stay to the end. God bless America. God bless college football. Let's go have a great week. Starts tonight. Syracuse Pitt, Friday night. Boise State at UNLV. This is for all the Tostitos. I don't know why I keep saying that, but I do. Let's go. Y'all have a great week. See you soon.